and he cures this Roman centurion servant. This Roman centurion, I'm let you all read that. He cures him. The Roman centurion sees Jesus afar off, and he runs to him, and he tells Jesus just how powerful he is. But in telling Jesus how powerful he is, he's also showing how greatly he's submitting to Jesus. Because he ran when he saw Jesus afar off. And he ran to ask Jesus to cure his servant. But he did it because he believed that Jesus could do it. And so he says in verse number 7, therefore I did not even think myself worthy to come to you, but say the word and my servant will be healed. Why am a man placed under authority, having soldiers under me? And I say to that one, go, and he goes, and another one, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. And what he was saying, what he said, that he wasn't bragging. He was saying, this is who I am, but I submit to you. That if you will just give the word, like I'm not even worthy for you to come into my home. And he says, if you would just say it, I know he'll be healed. And so Jesus heard these things. He marveled at them and turned around and said to the crowd that followed him, I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. And those who were sent, returning to the house, found the servant well, who had been sick. And so it starts out with the Roman centurion, not even a Jew, just it's letting you know that this is this Jesus coming, and he does this just with his voice. And the next thing he does is he raises another woman. He raises a woman's son from the dead. It gets there. The woman is weeping. Jesus has compassion for her, and they're carrying the child out. The child is dead. And here in this story, Jesus touches the child, and the child comes back to life. And so in the first two stories, the focus is on Jesus. The focus is on what Jesus can do. The focus is on Jesus being the Almighty God. He cures with just words. We got to remember, he never even met the servant. He just cured him with his words. He touched the young boy, and the young boy comes back to life. But in 36 and 50, the focus is not on Jesus. It's on the sinner. And it's such a wonderful story because it's about her coming to Christ. It lets us know that there is no bottom for Christ. It lets us know that wherever you are, he is ready to accept you. And so here in verse number 36, it says, then one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at the table with the Pharisee at the Pharisee's house, she brought alabaster flasks of fragrant oil. So she knew Jesus was at this Pharisee's house. She came not bringing expensive oil for the host. She was bringing it to Jesus. When we come to Jesus, what are we bringing to Jesus? Now she's a sinner, but she's bringing something to Jesus. And she's so ashamed of, remember, she's a sinner. She knows herself. We know ourselves. We sometimes think that we've done too much for this embrace of the Lord. And so she stood at his feet behind him weeping, and she began to wash his feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. And she kissed his feet and anointed them with fragrant oil. It's important that we understand what she did. Now, she's a sinner. She knows she's a sinner. And what's great about this is the writer doesn't tell us what sin she committed. So this woman is us, right? She's a thief, a liar, she's a murderer. She's whatever we want her to be. You know, mostly they try to say women in the book, she's a prostitute, but he gives us no definition. Maybe she's married after being divorced, and you know how that works there, but she's a sinner. And it's interesting that he gives no definition of what she's done, because we can relate to her. And when she came to him, she stood at his feet behind him. So Jesus is sitting down, facing this way, and she's behind him. Why is this important? Because she's so ashamed to come in front of him. She can't come in front of him, for she doesn't think she's worthy for him to look upon her. And so she stood at his feet behind him, and she was crying. Why was she crying? She was crying for the things she was done, but she was also crying because she now knew who she was in the presence of. Has God ever made you feel so amazing of the knowing that he was there, knowing that it was going to be okay, that you were in the right place, that you cried in the presence of the Lord? So this woman was there, and so she's crying. She's behind him. And it says here that she began to wash his feet with her tears. So that means that she's behind him, but by this time she has knelt down. She must be on her hands and knees, because in order for that to happen, that's how the tears get on his feet. And again, her hair is probably long because she's wiping it with his feet with her hair. So she's still not looking up at him because she's still ashamed of who she is. But she's not so fearful that she didn't come to Jesus. See, she gives us a lesson here to be remembered. She was a sinner. She had done wrong. She was embarrassed. She was ashamed. And yet she heard that Jesus would be in this Pharisee's house, and she was going to go, and she was going to worship him. And so she goes and she takes this expensive oil, and now she's on her hands and knees, and she's crying because she's in the presence of the Lord. If it can be fixed, he can fix it. And so her tears are falling on his feet, and she wipes them with her hair of her head, and she kisses his feet, and she anoints it with the fragrant oil that she brought. Imagine that. Now, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. We need to make sure we're not him, right? We have people that come to the church. They don't always look like us. They don't always talk like us. They don't always come from where we came from. We need to not be this guy to say, if we only knew what he was, right? He or she. And Jesus answered and said to Simon, the name of the Pharisee whose home in which he was eating, I have something to say to you. So he said it. Teacher, tell him. There's a certain creditor who had two debtors, one who owed 500 denarii and the other who owed 50. And when they had nothing which to repay, he freely forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him more? And Simon answered and said, I suppose the one whom he forgave more. And he said to him, you have rightly judged. If you look at Jesus throughout the Bible, he's talking to people who are agricultural. He tells them about sowing seeds, vineyards, fig trees. But if you look at him now talking to this Pharisee in his home, who he's having a dinner for Jesus, and you know, Jesus' crew comes with him, right? Jesus by himself. He's got to be somebody that has some money. So Jesus talks to him in his language. So he lets him know he doesn't talk to him about fig trees or vineyards or seeds to be sown. He talks to him about money, because that's what would be important to this person. He says to him, if one person, 500 denarii, a denarii is about 3 dollars and, I don't know, 50 cents, 60 cents, but I'm gonna round it off, so we can do the math. So it's just $3. So you're gonna let one person who you owe $1,500, somebody owes $1,500, and the person owes you $150. So there's 10 times the difference between the two people that owe you. But you wipe them both off. And he says, which will love him more? And he says, well, the one that he forgives more. Well, it's interesting about that because when you look at the fact that he talked about money, he talked about debts owed, he's saying that each of us in our sin owes a debt to the Lord. That sin is really a debt that only the Lord can forgive. We can't pay him for the debt, right? We can build up all the debt in the world. We can't say, well, I'm worth $100 million. I'll give you $100 million for all the sins I've committed. A, God doesn't need your money. And B, you can never repay him. So the only person who can forgive your debt is the Lord. And so sin is a debt. And so he's letting him know that here. And so he goes on to say, then he turns to the woman and he says to Simon, do you see this woman? Now, it's interesting that he says, do you see this woman? She's in my house. I'd already talked in my head about her. I'd already said she's a sinner. I saw her when she came in here. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying, do you see her? Are you paying attention to her? Are you watching what she's doing? All you see is the sinner. I'm watching the repenter, right? Because he says, I entered your house that you hosted me at, and you gave me no water for my feet, but she's washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair on her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrance. It's important that he keeps talking about his feet because there were no cobble streets back then. I mean, in Rome, in the city, he's walking on dusty roads. So his feet are very dirty, right? He's got on sandals. He doesn't have on the new Kanye kicks. He's literally got on sandals, right? Dusty. You know, like your mom said, don't bring no dusty feet in my house, right? But this is what he has. He has on sandals. And this woman doesn't care because he's Jesus and he can fix it, right? She says something that's so amazing that she does that we need to see that she does. She's a sinner. She's ostracized from the neighborhood. At least she's ostracized in public because the Pharisee knows her. She's welcome enough in his house, but not when he has company. Right? We don't want to be like that, right? We want to welcome everybody, even if they come in and we have, a potluck upstairs. We get some visitors that we know that maybe a little new. We want to welcome them. We don't want to shun them just because, we have company. So here, she does something that we find in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15. And it's important that it's 15 and 16. But we really need to do 16, and I'll read 15 just to take us into 16. Hebrews chapter 4, 15 and 16. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was one all tempted like we are, yet without sin. But 16 is the verse I want. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. This woman came boldly to the throne of grace. Hear me. She waited. It says here, then one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. She came after he sat down. He's sitting on the throne. She came to the throne of grace boldly because he could fix it. She was a